Time for an update on the firs. Starting off with the ABSFMA firma, Momi Fir. This little one was purchased from Conifer Kingdom, I guess a year and a half ago. And as you can see, there's still some dead foliage at the tips where it was caught by a late frost, but it was able to put on some new growth after that, and there are also plenty of viable new buds waiting for next spring to sprout out. So I think it will bounce back, and being susceptible to early frost damage is typical for the ABSFMA, since this is a more southerly fir in southern Japan. But that also means it's very heat tolerant, so it's ideal for the southeastern US. So I'm not too discouraged, but it is going to be a slow growing process for this particular one. Moving on. This is a Korean fir, and this particular cultivar of Abies koreana is Horstman Silberlock, which is very popular in the online horticultural trade because of the upturned needles that show the underside and kind of give it a frosted look. You can see when viewed from straight on it looks green, but when you get down below like this, you see the white. So it's a really cool tree. And this one was a grafted branch purchased from Conifer Kingdom. And you can see I've got my little stake here where I'm trying to train it to go vertical. And it's doing an acceptable job of having a vertical tendency. These buds for next year look really good. Very well protected with some sort of waxy coating or resinous coating there. Also, this Korean fir is fairly reliable in not breaking bud too soon, and almost every bud that's on it will break and put on new growth. So in general, I would say Korean fir is ideal for Middle Tennessee, at least, and maybe for many parts of the Mid-South. Okay, the other ABSFMA Momi fir that I have is so big it's almost hard to get it all in the picture here, but it's a very large specimen, approaching 15 feet in height. And I purchased this at a local nursery when it was maybe about 8 feet tall. It's been an extremely reliable grower and hasn't really suffered from early bud break like the other one I showed you has. Maybe because it's more established. And the other one had just been delivered from a grower that maybe had a warmer climate, like in Oregon, where Conifer Kingdom is located. So I think once they get established in Tennessee, the Momi Fir will do very well, as this one has done very well. So if you're going to try a fir at all, which in general is a little risky, I definitely say try to start with either the Momi Fir or the Korean fir, or this fir. This is the Nordman Fir, Abies nordmanniana. Extremely popular in Europe as a Christmas tree, because as you can see, it's got a very uniform branching structure. Well, I'll show you from above so you can really appreciate the geometric uniformity of its branching. This one was sort of slow growing, but this last summer it put up this huge leader that's about a foot tall. So I'm expecting it to speed up as it gets bigger. The other thing to know about this Nordman Fir is it's grafted onto an ABSFMA rootstock, the Japanese fir we were just looking at. They've done some studies in forestry to find that ABSFMA is most resistant to the Phytophthora root rot, which can affect some firs. So that's why the Nordman is grafted. But the top side is 100% Nordman. Important to realize that a grafted tree is not a hybrid tree. The roots are 100% Momi Fir, and the top is 100% Nordman Fir. One other detail about this Nordman Fir, the cultivar is tortifolia, which is a full-sized cultivar, so it should grow large. And with a lot of these firs, there are many different cultivars. Well, with Momi Fir, I don't think there are any different cultivars, maybe one or two that you would find on some websites, but Nordman, if you go to Conifer Kingdom, there are probably several different cultivars of Nordman. This one is the tortifolia, if you're looking for this particular one. This one is the Taiwan Fir, Abies kawakamii. It's also doing pretty well, although I'm a little worried about the leader bud there because it looks like it started to break bud sometime in the late fall during our many warm spells here we had this year. But I'm hopeful that it hasn't really sustained too much damage and it will put out normal growth. And even if the central leader bud is lost, the two side ones could pop out and take over as the new leader. So pretty good so far on the Taiwan Fir. Very hard to find. I was lucky to find this on Conifer Kingdom. If you happen to see it again somewhere, give it a try in the Mid-South in Middle Tennessee. It has not had any problems with premature bud break. Very tolerant of the drought we had this fall. Seems to be doing very well. Growing quickly for something that was planted relatively recently. I'm just about to plant this one right now, so I'll show it. This is the Algerian Fir, Abies numidica, grafted onto Abies firma from Conifer Kingdom. Let me see here. Okay, one of my viewers said that I should show the graft point more often on these trees. And this is where you can see the Japanese fir, Abies firma rootstock. And above that is the Algerian Fir, cyanwood, Abies numidica. Very interesting bottle brush branches on this. Tight foliage. I was expecting this to look a lot like Abies pinsapo from Spain, but it's totally different. It's more like the Sicilian and Greek firs, in my opinion. We'll see what it does. I'm going to plant it in a fairly sunny and dry site, because I don't think it needs to be sprayed by water too much. All right, I'm not completely ready to give up yet on the Abies beishanzuensis, the Beishan Fir. It did suffer a lot during the -4 temperature we had last December, and it only put on just a little bit of new growth this year in 2023 down here on the bottom. But it does seem like there still might be some viable buds here and there, even though it lost a lot of needles from the year before. So I'm going to leave it in the ground and see what happens in the spring. This is a fairly rare fir in the world and in cultivation. I'm not ready to give up just yet, but it is struggling as a result of that extreme cold spell. And it had not been in the ground that long when that happened. Here we have the Fir Concolor white fir, native to the western U.S. This one is the blue Cloak cultivar, also purchased from Conifer Kingdom. And it's doing very well. It looks like it put on about 6 or 7 inches of vertical growth this past summer. Tons of new buds here. I'm a little worried about the appearance of the buds. It looks like they may have started to open in the late fall heat wave, but maybe that's how they always look. I shouldn't worry because it's been very reliable for the 2 or 3 years I've had it in the ground. Obviously it has a nice bluish color. I included this one in one of my alternatives to Colorado blue spruce videos, because it's pretty good. And also this one is grafted onto the Abies firma rootstock once again, which is a recurring theme. And I think a lot of professionals will agree that's the way to go with firs in the South, especially if you have kind of clay, moisture retaining soil. So this one is grafted onto Abies firma rootstock, and it seems to be doing very well. This is my Spanish fir, Abies pinsapo. I don't really know what's wrong with this thing, because one year it put out very feeble growth, sort of yellowish. And then, of course, we had the -4 temperature, which damaged a lot of the buds the following year. So I'm just going to wait and see what happens. This green foliage you see is about 2 years old now at this point. And so at some point these older needles are going to have to fall off. So I don't know what the deal is with ABS pinsapo. I did have one other smaller one a couple years ago and lost it for some unknown reason. So I'm a little bit wary of recommending Spanish fir at this point. I don't think I can recommend it, especially since there are a couple other options that are much better. Here we have the Vejar Fir, Abies vejarii, native to the mountains of northern Mexico. And this particular cultivar is the Blue Mountain, or Mountain Blue, I can't remember. Cultivar purchased from Conifer Kingdom. You can see I've got it staked up here because I lost my leader in the extreme cold, and I'm starting a new one. It is actually pretty good about establishing new leaders because it's done that before, right here. So seems to be a vigorous grower, and it obviously tolerates heat, being from Mexico. Now I did have another Vejar Fir, which is the standard, and they're selling those now in Conifer Kingdom, so don't get confused. The standard green and the Blue Mountain have one major difference. Both of them were in the ground when -4 hit. The standard was completely killed, no questions asked, and the Blue Mountain version of Vejar Fir was totally unaffected, with basically no bud loss except the leader. That was the one bud I lost. Maybe there's a couple other buds next to it on the top that died. But minimal bud loss, I would say, at -4 with the blue cultivar. And to me, that just means that the blue one came from some higher elevation stock than the standard green they're selling. So if you're further south than Tennessee and you want to try Vejar Fir, I think you're safe with the green. But if you're as far north as the Nashville area of Tennessee, I would not try Vejar Fir unless you can find the blue one. And that probably goes for colder areas of like the Cumberland Plateau and East Tennessee as well. Maybe if you're in Memphis, try the standard Vejar Fir. Or like Georgia, Alabama, standard may work as well. Here's another ABS firma Momi Fir, and this one I purchased from forestfarm.com. It was a little bit yellow when I got it, and seemed basically stable all summer long, but since the winter has come, it looks like the foliage has taken on some frost damage, and that may just be, I don't know why that is, because I think this foliage that we're seeing now is new for this year, but I don't think this particular tree here has ever been exposed to Tennessee level cold since it's been grown in the Pacific Northwest. So maybe similar to the other one, it just needs to acclimate. I'm obviously not going to take it out of the ground. I'm going to leave it in and see what happens when it breaks bud in the spring. But this Momi Fir is struggling a little bit, which I think is due to some frost damage. And you can see I've got it growing here in the area with the white rock mulch, which should be a positive because most other trees seem to appreciate that. Okay, this is a standard Concolor fir. Earlier I showed you the blue Cloak cultivar that was bluish. This is the standard green. And, notably, it's growing on its own rootstock. So Concolor fir rootstock as an experiment. This one came from shop.arborday.org, which is a pretty cool website, online nursery, if you want to check it out. The key thing you have to watch out for on that website is there are very few trees offered on there that come in pots. And I think I've said this on a lot of other videos, but I'll reiterate it now. You always want to get potted trees delivered to you by mail. Bare root has never really worked out for me. So this one is the Santa Fe cultivar of white fir, Concolor fir. And it did come in a pot, and it's been in the ground over a year now and put on about 3 inches of growth this year. seems to really be doing well. Very consistent growth. No bud loss, obviously, when it got to -4, because -4 means nothing to a white fir. It can go way colder than that. Tolerates heat as well, since I guess the cultivar name indicates it comes from New Mexico, where it does get pretty warm and dry. And Concolor fir, by the way, is a tough fir. I saw this growing out of cracks in the Grand Canyon, where it was pretty hot and pretty dry, so it can tolerate a lot. Now, can it tolerate the heat and humidity of Middle Tennessee and all the fungus that comes with it? I don't know, we'll find out. That's a different story. But so far, the experiment is going well. Abies Concolor is the Latin name, by the way. Okay, last of all, this one's not really a true fir. This is the Douglas fir. The Latin name is Pseudotsuga menziesii. And you can tell by the genus name of Pseudotsuga, it's not abies like all the others. So it's not a true fir, but they call it Douglas fir, and I'll include it in the video since this is the only species in that whole genus that I have. And where else am I going to put it? It's doing well. It probably put on 2 inches of growth this summer. And I don't see any problems with the foliage. I've got it in a partial sun location. It gets shade most of the morning and sun in the afternoon. I think the rock mulch is going to help to keep down the fungal pathogens. It's a little bit breezy in this spot. So I would say so far so good on this particular Douglas fir. I know in general it's a risky species to attempt in Middle Tennessee, but if you're doing some experimentation on what can and cannot make it, tentatively, I want to say give the Douglas fir a try. Oh, also make sure this is the Rocky Mountain version. There's 2 different versions of Douglas fir. There's a coastal version from like the coastline of Oregon, Washington, California. And then there's the Rocky Mountain version that goes up into Idaho and Colorado and places like that. For Tennessee, you definitely want to get the Rocky Mountain version. Sometimes you see it labeled the Glauca version, although this one is not particularly blue. So special attention to make sure you get the Rocky Mountain version. And this one did come from forestfarm.com. And actually it looks a lot better than some of the other things that I've gotten from forestfarm.com. So this and the incense cedar, I think, are probably some of the 2 best things you can order from forestfarm.com. The Rocky Mountain Douglas fir and the California incense cedar. Because I think their incense cedar actually is from the intermountain incense cedar population and not the coastal population. So there you have it. That's my fir update. Also, forgot to mention, in some older videos I showed the Abies fargesii Farges fir from central China. That one did not break bud at all this past summer. And I was going to leave it in the ground, but it got eaten by a dog, so I just pulled it out and put something else there in that spot. So fargesii, Abies fargesii Farges fir, maybe I would try it again, maybe not. It didn't do well with the cold, so watch out for that one.